For today's case, guys, we are actually going to be going to France. Now, I haven't yet done a case that's based in France. And for those of you that don't know, I actually grew up in France. I did my secondary school and college education there. So I actually speak French and English as my first languages. And so for this case, I was really able to do some digging and delve a lot deeper into it because a lot of the information on this case was actually in French. So we're going to be talking about the case of Gisele Pelicot, okay? This case takes place initially in the north of France around a Paris suburb, and then we're going to the south of France in an area called Mazan. The perpetrator of today's case, guys, is called Dominique Pelicot. Dominique is a gentleman that was born in 1952 in northern France, so not too far from Paris, and he sort of went from kind of job to job and ended up becoming an electrician for EDF, which is the biggest kind of well-known electricity company in France. And in 1971, this case goes back, guys, but then it gets to literally 2024 later in the story. So bear with me on this one. So Dominique met his wife, Gisele, in 1971, and they both ended up working for EDF, so this electricity company in France. She was like a manager there, and he was obviously an electrician there. They ended up getting married, and they had 3 children called Caroline, who was the girl, and David and Florian, who were the boys. So they were like supposedly happily married. They had very good jobs and were bringing up their 3 kids. And actually the perpetrator of today's case, so Dominique Pelicot, actually committed his first legal offence in 1991. Now, this wasn't discovered until, I want to say, the last couple of years that his offences actually went back this far. But for the chronology of today's case, guys, I'm actually going to go through the offences in the order that he perpetrated them, as opposed to in the order that they were discovered, etc., etc., and how they link back into the case. I'll go over that later on. So the first criminal offence that Dominique Pelicot committed was in 1991. And he had arranged to visit an apartment, so near Paris, with an estate agent called Sophie Narme. And Sophie Narme turned up at the apartment. You know, she thought she's just going to do a normal showing for a gentleman that wants to buy or rent a flat, basically, in Paris. Dominique Pelicot turns up. He ends up raping her and also strangling her to death. And when Sophie was found at the scene, she had no clothes on. She was completely naked. And for some reason, they weren't able to locate Dominique Pelicot. They weren't even able to find a perpetrator for this case. And so for years and years and years, this first initial murder situation went sort of under the radar until now, basically. So in the time that Dominique committed this murder, he was still working at EDF as an electrician. His wife was still a manager there. They're bringing up their 3 kids. His wife had no idea what was going on. He didn't, guys, some perpetrators of crimes, they'll discuss their crimes with other people, they'll slip up and end up saying something about a crime that they've done. But in this case, Dominique, he didn't at this stage discuss anything with anyone. So no one had any idea that he could be doing things like this. So he's still going to work. His wife Gisele is going to work. They're bringing up their 3 kids. Everyone thinks everything is going good. Everything is normal. However, guys, time passes again and Dominique starts to get itchy feet, guys, and he starts to get up to his old ways again. So in 1999, he's like, let me arrange another flat showing because I want to, do something that's not very nice again. So he books in with an estate agent called Estella. Estella shows him around this other apartment in Paris in 1999. And he thinks, right, I'm going to rape this lady and what have you. However, Estella manages to fight back and she actually manages to run out of the apartment and get away from Dominique. And this is obviously something that Dominique had not planned for. So Estella's run off now and she's gone and reported it straight to the police. The police are now looking for Dominique Pelicot. They obviously should have a name because or I don't know if they had a name, maybe he gave a fake name. But Estella reported this, so the police were technically investigating this case in 1999. However, for some reason, the case sort of got dismissed and nothing happened. And Dominique Pelicot just went about his life. The following year was obviously the year 2000, the millennium. And when it hit the year 2000, Dominique got into a lot of debt. Even though he had a really good job at EDF and Gisele had a good job, like they were doing really well. They had their own house, like they were supposedly doing good. However, Dominique somehow built up all these debts. We don't know from where. He owed 75,000 euros to his brother Thierry. But aside from that, he had all these other debts, which were a lot more serious. So he said to Gisele, his wife, why don't we get a divorce so that we can limit the amount of assets that get taken to us, because we know we owe all these money to loan sharks, and that way maybe Gisele, it wasn't said, but probably he assumed that Gisele was going to keep some of the assets to prevent them losing all of their assets legally. So essentially the reason for them divorcing was not because they actually wanted to get divorced because they don't want to be together. It was just to prevent all these assets being seized by the justice system, basically. But they still carried on a relationship. So they did the divorce, still carried on a relationship, and were doing everything as normal, but just legally divorced, basically. And then in 2007, they decided to get married again, although they'd been together still for the past 7 years and more. But now they got remarried again in 2007. Gisele thought nothing of it. Now, already, guys, this man had over 75,000 euros of debt. 75,000 euros is what he borrowed from his brother Thierry, but he had more and more. And at that point, you would think sometimes alarm bells would start ringing if you're someone's partner and you know they've got all those debts, because Gisele knew he'd got all those debts because that was the reason for them doing the divorce, so that the assets didn't get seized. And you would have thought at that point maybe Gisele would have completely left him. She would have been pissed off, took the kids, and that's it. But she decided to stay with him, and then they got remarried in 2007. And as far as Gisele knew, they were just, again, still working at EDF, going about their life, and then waiting for their retirement, basically. So in 2010, it was time for the Pelicots to take their retirement, because they've been working since God knows when for EDF. So in 2010, Dominique and Gisele decided to relocate from a suburb of Paris to the south of France in a place called Mazan. Okay, so they moved to Mazan. By this time, their kids were adults. They had little grandchildren. So they had their 3 kids, and their kids, all 3 of them together, had 7 grandchildren. So it's said that they used to see the grandkids regularly. Gisele used to look after the grandkids a lot. Like, she was a very involved grandmother. And all of this kind of thing. So again, at this point, everyone thought, okay, this is, absolutely normal, not anything unusual. Couple that's taken retirement, their kids are grown up, they've got kids. You know what I mean? Like, nothing unusual here. And it's important to remember, guys, because it seems like everything is just going on, that we need to remember that Dominique Pelicot has committed a murder in 1999, which has not yet been discovered. And he tried to rape this other girl, Estella. Committed the murder in 1991 and tried to rape this other lady, Estella, in 1999. And he still hasn't been, it still hasn't been discovered yet. And now in 2010, he's in retirement in the south of France with his wife, Gisele. Now, Dominique, he must have been getting really, really bored, because he starts going on the internet. And in these kind of criminal cases, guys, when you get perpetrators that start going on the internet and looking for things, it's generally not good things, right? And Gisele, she was like, happy, looking after her grandkids and whatever. Do you know what I mean? She was occupying her time with other things. But Dominique, he was getting bored. He started to get what I call itchy feet again, because it's been a good 10 years now since he did his last crime. So he's getting a bit bored, sitting in retirement in the house. What's he going to do? He starts going on the internet, on the dark web, and he joins this site called À son insu. And à son insu in French, when you translate it to English, it means without her knowledge or without his knowledge. That's what it means. That's the name of the website, okay? And you can probably imagine, guys, that by the name of a website that's called Without Her Knowledge or Without His Knowledge, that means it's something that's without someone knowing that you're doing something, which already clearly does not sound good. And so in 2010, he's chatting to other guys on this dodgy dark web website, and they start talking about, now when I heard the name of the website, guys, Assonansu, Without her knowledge, I thought, oh, maybe it's people, you know, having extramarital affairs and things like that, because there are websites like that exist. Like, it's quite well known that they do exist. So I thought maybe he's going to have an affair, but no, it's a lot more dark than that. So he starts chatting to all these other guys who are also on there. As far as I'm aware, he's only talking to other men, not women. And they start talking about how will they sedate women with medication and then rape them. And basically, at this time, Dominique's wife, so Gisele, she starts taking a medication called lorazepam. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of that medication, but basically it has to be prescribed by a GP or doctor. And one of the side effects of lorazepam is that it starts to have a sedative effect. It can make you feel very drowsy. So Gisele has been prescribed this by her doctor for whatever reason, and it starts to make her feel like drowsy on and off. So she's still going about her day, doing everything else normally, but every so often she feels like a little bit drowsy, basically. So Dominique's having these conversations with these other nutcases on this website, right? And he starts getting an idea that, like, okay, Gisele, she's taking this medication which makes her drowsy. Then he's chatting with this man on this website about how to sedate women before you rape them, blah, blah, blah. And then he puts two and two together and is like, what if I give Gisele extra lorazepam medication, knock her out completely, and so she's completely out of it, and then rape her? And so after he comes off the website, after he's chatting with all these other nutters, right, Gisele's taking her medication and he starts dropping extra tablets of this medication into drinks that she's drinking, like water and juice and whatever she's drinking, yeah? Gisele's just drinking it, and obviously she's been with her husband for how many years? She doesn't suddenly think, oh, I would suspect my husband of giving me extra medication, whatever. She's drinking her drink. Maybe the medication as well didn't taste of much when it's mixed with a drink or whatever, I don't know. So Gisele just thinks she's taking her normal dosage of medication. And it's said, guys, like further in the case, that it was discovered that Dominique had ordered 450 lorazepam pills over the space of 1 year, because it was tracked, you know, like on his medical record in France. So when he was getting prescriptions, he had a prescription for 450 lorazepam pills in 1 year. And he was, on top of what Gisele was taking, he had all these other 450 pills which he was adding on top of her medication and giving her. So now Gisele is getting really out of it, and bear in mind these guys are in retirement, so they're probably in their 60s now or more. So these pills start knocking her for six, guys. Like, she's completely out of it, like zoned out all the time, basically. And Dominique starts to conduct these rapes on her all the time. But because Gisele is so out of it, like when he conducts the rapes, she's like completely knocked out. And then she'll come to and she doesn't even remember anything. She doesn't know what's happened, basically. But she starts to progressively experience a lot of like pain in her cervix, and she starts to feel like really worn out, tired all the time. She loses about 16 kilos as well. And so it's visible that there's something that's wrong. So she decides to go and see her doctor, right? Now, the problem is that every time she goes to see her doctor, Dominique is with his wife. And so when the doctor might say something, obviously Dominique comes in and is like, oh yeah, but my wife this, oh yeah, but maybe it's this or this. And it sort of takes the doctor off routing, which is really bad. So Gisele actually went to the doctor loads of times, not 2-3 times, but loads, probably more than 10 times, like loads of times. She went to the GP, kept saying she's got pain in her cervix, she's got pain here, she's got pain there. The doctor, he never referred her to a gynecologist or to anyone. He never did any sort of overall health check, like, did an overall check of her body, nothing. while all this was going on. And Dominique, because he starts to get really comfortable and he feels like he's not going to get found out, and he keeps perpetrating these rapes on Gisele, like I would imagine practically on a daily basis, like sometimes multiple times a day. And obviously Gisele can't remember anything and no one knows. So he starts to get really, really comfortable. He goes back on this dark website, so Asonansu, and he's still chatting all the time with these other guys on there. And he starts to chat with them and he starts asking these guys if they would also like to come and rape his wife, right? So these psychopaths agree, and he starts telling them, okay, when you come to my house, you need to park your car a little bit away from the house so it can't be traced. You mustn't wear any strong like fragrances like perfumes. You mustn't have smoked beforehand because it smells really strong. And Gisele, she's got a really high sense of smell apparently, so that could trigger her to start to wake up. So he doesn't want them to do that. And then when they come in the house, they need to remove all of their clothes, like everything, and leave all their clothes in either the kitchen or the living room before they enter the bedroom to perpetrate these sexual acts on Gisele. So now Dominique is having all these weirdo men coming round raping his wife. Gisele's completely out of it. Obviously, he's got her well drugged up on this medication. She doesn't know what's going on. And she's just losing more and more weight. It said that she started to actually lose her hair as well because of the effect of all the rapes and all the like medication, which was, you know, overdose level almost, I want to say. And she's still going to the doctor, guys. She's still saying, look, I don't feel well, I've got pain in my cervix, it's getting worse and worse, and still the doctor's not referring her for anything. And I'm thinking, because she had pain in her cervix, like the first thing you would do is you'll do a referral to a gynecologist or something like that. But the doctor does nothing, and this is years and years and years where she keeps saying she's got discomfort, she's got pain, all her hair by this point is dropping out, she's lost so much weight. But the doctor doesn't think of anything. It's like you would think maybe the person's got a medical condition or what, but for some reason the doctor's like, oh yeah, must be stress, must be. It's like, come on, like. And this is a doctor she's been going to for years, guys. It's not like she just rocked up one week, doctor's never met her. This is someone she's been going to for years. So it's like you would see the person's physical changes over time and think, right, there's something really wrong. Plus the husband is always with her, always interjecting, like, this is a bit strange. And then while all this is going on, he gets into contact, I think, via the website with another guy called Jean-Pierre Maréchal. This is around the year of 2015. So by this point, all of this has been going on since 2011. So it's 4 years that this has been going on, right, without being undetected by anyone. So basically, he starts talking to this guy, Jean-Pierre Maréchal. And Jean-Pierre Maréchal also wants to perpetrate rapes on his wife. So he's seeking advice from Dominique. So Dominique's like, oh, if you want, I can come round to your house and train you on how to perpetrate these rapes on your wife. Like, honestly, guys, this case is crazy. So Dominique ends up going around now to Jean-Pierre's house, and teaching Jean-Pierre how to get his wife drugged up so he can rape her. And then he also ends up raping Jean-Pierre's wife multiple times. Honestly, guys, the whole thing is absolutely disgusting. So that's going on as well between 2015 and 2020, consequently with what Dominique is doing with his wife, basically, right? So anyway, this goes on and on and on and on. And around the year, actually, that this started, guys, sorry, I forgot to mention, in 2010, Dominique did get arrested because he was in the supermarket and he had like a little camera and he was sticking it up ladies' skirts in the supermarket, right? Now, bearing in mind there's CCTV everywhere, and in France, like, I mean, legislation is strict in loads of countries, but I'm like, there, if you're doing something odd, like, it's quite a conservative country still, and it's like people will notice probably quite quickly, if I'm honest. And so he's taking his camera and sticking it up ladies' skirts in the middle of the supermarket. It's like, what the hell are you doing, right? So, I mean, he does that once and they catch him immediately. Like, he's in there for 10 or 20 minutes. They can see him doing it. So he gets arrested. And then when he gets arrested, guys, the police just give him a fine of €100, which is like the equivalent of 60, 70 pounds. And that's it. He gets nothing else. So then that's why he's able to go on and do all these other things, because again, the police never do anything. So that was 2010. So now he's been training up Jean-Pierre on how to conduct these disgusting sexual acts on his wife and drug her up. He's got his whole thing going on with Gisele, getting all these men to come around and sexually assault Gisele. And this has been going on now since around 2010 to 2011. So now Dominique is getting way too comfortable. He is getting messy AF. He's not being cautious anymore, because obviously he's talking to all these guys online. Now he's been training up Jean-Pierre how to conduct these disgusting sexual acts on his wife, and he's raping Jean-Pierre's wife as well. So now it's getting a bit too messy, and too many people kind of know what's going on, although for some reason Dominique thinks that they're just going to keep his secret and whatever. But anyway, and then in 2020, so Dominique's in his car, and apparently he's been up to his old tricks again, doing this thing where he's, you know, filming women up their skirts or God knows what, some offence like that. And the police catch him, and this time they're like, you need to hand over your phones, because he's got 2 mobile phones. You need to give us your laptop, you know, like your little USB memory card dongle things, right? So he has to give them all of this stuff. This is in 2020. And he hands it, and he's like, oh, do I have to give it over? And he's like, and they're like, yeah, we need to like have it. So he hands all this over, and this man, he is not like smart. Like he's been filming, I forgot to mention, guys, because remember he's got his little camera and all this. He's been filming all of these sexual assaults on Gisele, all of them practically, yeah? So there's loads and loads of videos, probably at least 80-90 videos or more, where he's been filming all this. Not only, guys, has he been filming the assault, he's written on these videos, like underneath them, the dates, the times, who the perpetrators of them are, so the names of the people that have committed these sexual assaults on his wife. So literally, practically all of the information, apart from the person's address and contact number, is on every single one of these videos of these assaults on Gisele. Now, obviously, when the police took his mobile phones, his laptop, his USB dongles and whatever, they were looking for images of him having filmed or took photos up women's skirts. They weren't expecting to see hundreds of rapes on his wife, right? So, you know, it's like where they've gone into this information and like, what the hell, like this is something completely different, like what the hell. So going through all of this data, jotting down all of these perpetrators' names that have done this to Gisele and everything. And at this time, Dominique, for some reason, he's still not panicked. Like this man, I said, guys, he's not smart. Like he didn't think, oh, maybe I should not have saved that information on my phones. Maybe I should have deleted the data from the dongles, USBs and whatever before I gave this to the police. But I told you guys, this man, do you know what I mean? He's getting more and more messy. He's not being careful. So he hands all this to the police. They're now going through all these videos of Gisele, taking all the perpetrators' names down that have done this to her. They discover this Jean-Pierre who's trying to be the next Dominique, and how Dominique's training him up. Like all this info is in the video, guys. Like they're watching it and just like they see the whole time frame and everything. So now Dominique's not even panicking. His 3 kids have none the wiser about anything with their little grandkids. His wife, she don't even know what's going on. She doesn't even know he's been arrested. She didn't even know about the first, well, I say the first offence, the offence in 2010 where he'd been arrested for filming up ladies' skirts. She don't know anything. She probably thinks Dominique's gone off somewhere, like shopping or God knows what, right? So anyway, the police call both Gisele and Dominique to the police station. This is around September 2020, yeah? So they both go to the police station. And Dominique, he's not even panicking, guys. I don't even know how this man doesn't even care, honestly. So they rock up to the police station and they take Dominique in one like room to interrogate him, and they take Gisele in another room to not interrogate her but have a conversation with her. So they take out one of not a video, I think it's like images actually initially, because obviously they are aware that she's probably unaware of what's gone on because they can see she's been drugged in the video, right? And so they show Gisele this first video, right, it's of her with a guy, and I think she's turned on her side or something, and for some reason she doesn't recognise herself. I don't know why. So then they show her a second image, and in this image she's like, oh my god, it's me. And then as soon as she sees that image and it's with another guy doing something, she starts to like comprehend what the hell has gone on. Obviously she didn't know any of this, but obviously seeing that, she's like, oh my god, this is, you know, like everything starts coming to her brain, and she's like, this is what my husband's been doing to me. Obviously Gisele's now confirmed it is her in the videos, so they know and can confirm that Dominique has perpetrated all these sexual assaults and got people to sexually assault Gisele. So they arrest Dominique and hold him for trial. Obviously they release Gisele. Gisele goes straight home. She packs 2 suitcases, it said, and she leaves that day. She's out the door and she files for divorce. That's it. So after that happens, it's a case where only got to court in this year, I believe, of 2024. It's only very recently that this has come to the surface, because it's taken time for the criminal justice system to compile all the information. Because in the end, guys, there ended up being, I think, 72 perpetrators that did this to Gisele. She was raped over 200 times, but they could only get the names and locate 52, which is already a lot, of perpetrators that did this to her, including that Jean-Pierre Maréchal who was doing this other stuff with his wife as well, right? So they've located these 52 suspects now, and obviously it takes time to interrogate them because there's a lot of suspects in this case. Gather the information, gather what's the communication between them and Dominique and all of this. And now half of them were like, you know, they were just plain dumb. They were like, oh, I didn't know that Gisele wasn't just asleep. Oh, I thought Gisele was consensual for this. It's like, you were on a website that's actually got shut down, by the way, guys, in June 2024 only. And between 2021 and 2024, there were 23,000 criminal acts committed because of that website alone. Perpetrators, suspects who were going out committing acts, probably sexual assaults, because of that website. Between 2021 and 2024, 23,000 criminal acts because of that website alone. And it only got shut down in June 2024, right? So anyway, half these perpetrators were like, we didn't realise Gisele wasn't just asleep. We thought it was consensual. We thought she wanted to do this. I'm thinking, like, this woman was so out of it on the medications that, I mean, it didn't look like she was sleeping. And Dominique would actually tell all of these suspects, all of these perpetrators, not to use protection, not to use condoms, right? So then they're all sexually assaulting Gisele without any protection. So obviously now, apart from the fact they're doing this to her, which is absolutely disgusting, they're now putting her at risk of STIs, STDs, and God knows what. It just so happens that one of the 52 suspects was a HIV carrier. And when I read that, already the whole case is horrendous, but when I read that, I thought, oh my God, you have actually put your wife at risk of death because of what you've done. Like, it's unbelievable. So one of them was a carrier of HIV, and he said he actually slept with Gisele 6 times. And unbelievably, thank God, Gisele didn't turn out. It didn't happen that she's got HIV or Hep B or Hep C or anything. Thank God for that. But honestly, it's disgusting. And all these perpetrators, guys, they had like normal jobs. One was a prison guard, actually in the prison that Gisele Pelicot is now held in, right? There were other ones that were like firefighters, HR managers, like they all had normal jobs as well. Like, it was so bloody weird, honestly. So anyway, Dominique's now in prison, blah, 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 blah. And while he's being held, because they've now brought him in, they are able to see like his DNA and, you know, all these fingerprints and all these things that they have on their system, guys. I don't know, but you know, all these things that are held on criminals, right? So they've got his DNA on there, and it comes up as a match for those 2 cases from 1991 and 1999. So remember, in 1991 we had the murder of Sophie Naum, the estate agent, and in 1999 we had the case of Estella, who he tried to attack and rape, but she managed to get away, right? And then they matched the DNA of this case now, so his DNA now, with those two cases from the 90s. And so that then meant that he could then be tried for the murder of Sophie and the attempted rape of Estella. And Estella was still around, so obviously she could also identify Dominique as well. So that was two other criminal cases that were then coming into play because he had now been arrested. And so now, as it stands, the trial is ongoing and there should be an outcome to it in December 2024. As I'm filming this, guys, at the end of September 2024, we do not yet know the outcome. However, Gisele has been very outspoken, and there's been a lot of protests in France about this because people are horrified, obviously. And she's come out and said, now, although the criminal justice system, lawyers, etc., they wanted to keep this as a private hearing because it was so outrageous and shocking, Gisele said she wants it to be made public. That was actually her request, and that is why this trial has been publicised, because she is the one that requested it. And she said the reason why she wanted it to be made public is because she wants to speak up for what happened. She doesn't want it to go like, you know, like under the radar, so no one actually knows what's going on. She wants to expose her husband and everything that she's done. And now she's, I think, in her 70s or something, as is he. I think he's 74 and she's like 71. So she's quite elderly. It turns out as well that not only obviously did they find the videos of Gisele and what happened to her, which is atrocious, they also found 2 videos of Dominique and Gisele's daughters-in-law, so that are married to their 2 sons, where he'd filmed them in the shower and stuff. And they found 2 images of Caroline, so their daughter, it looked like she'd been drugged as well, and Dominique had dressed her in Gisele's underwear, so in the mother's underwear, and then posted it online on this disgusting website, yeah? So that all came out. And so his daughter Caroline, she's written a book as well. She's been very outspoken about it because she's like the mother. She doesn't want this to go under the radar. They are not ashamed or embarrassed. They just want to expose Dominique for what he's done, which is understandable. And so they've been really, really vocal on French TV and in the press there. Now, guys, there's 2 things which I wanted to mention because it's like an ongoing trial, obviously. So the first thing is that Gisele Pelicot said when he was in court that he feels like he's been fair with Gisele because he drugged her so she didn't feel anything when she was raped 200 times, which is complete insanity. The second thing is apparently when he had to start attending these trials, he had a kidney infection and kidney stones. Now, just to clarify, guys, about 20 years ago, over 20 years ago when I was 19, I actually had a kidney infection where I nearly had to be hospitalised. It's like an extreme pain that I can't even describe. The closest I can describe it to is when I had COVID and I'm asthmatic, and that was so extreme. However, apparently Gisele Pelicot's lawyer wanted him to not have to physically attend court because he had a kidney infection and kidney stones. Now, he's had his wife raped 200 times and he's perpetrated rapes and on someone else's wife. I can't imagine the state physically that Gisele's body's been in, and he wants people to feel sorry for him because he's had a kidney infection and kidney stones. It's like, yeah, you should come physically into court. And so he actually physically attended court. Like he said, I'll attend court. But it's like, I'm not going to give you any sympathy because you came into court and you had a kidney infection. Who cares? Look what you've done to your wife. Look what you've done to someone else's wife and your daughters-in-law and your daughter. Do you think anyone's going to give you sympathy because you walked into a courtroom on a day that you had a kidney infection? No one cares. So yeah, basically the trial is ongoing now and there should be an outcome for it in December of 2024. So when the outcome comes out, I'll probably do a follow-up video to this one linking back into this, depending on what the outcome is and all of that kind of thing. But this is where this case is kind of in limbo, in a balance for the minute. But I would imagine, because of the way that the French justice system is, that they are going to go in as hard as possible. And the judge that's been overseeing this case is female as well. So I probably imagine this man's going to get a life term or whatever, because there's also the murder, remember, of Sophie Naum involved as well. So it's like they have to investigate this case with Gisele and the other guy's wife and his daughters-in-law and his daughter, but also this murder case and the other attempted rape case. And then there's Estella that's still around. She'll probably have to testify. So there's so much to look into in this case, guys. So as I said, I'll probably do a follow-up to this. There's a lot of cases, guys, like French criminal cases that have, for some reason I've noticed, come to light in the past year, where it's things that have gone on for 10, 15, 20 years and suddenly somehow they've been discovered now. It's really, really weird, to be honest, and I've noticed this a lot the last year or so in France. There's another one called the Outreau case, which there was a lot of information about on Netflix, and that was under the radar for 15, 20 years as well. Like, there's quite a few like that. I don't know why they're all suddenly coming to light now and being discovered. I'm not too sure, but a lot of the cases right now are like this. Anyway, guys, you let me know your thoughts and opinions on this case below. Honestly, I really commend this lady Gisele and her daughter and the daughters-in-law and even the sons and everything they've been through, because this woman, bearing in mind she's now 71 years old, she's only recently discovered that her husband's been doing this to her for years and years and years. I mean, like, I can only imagine what that would do to some people, but she's got such strength. The fact that she wanted to publicise it, to speak out, probably because she never ever wants this to happen to anyone else ever again. I give this lady so much respect, honestly, and this is why I wanted to do this case. Anyway, I'll leave it here, guys. Leave your comments down below, as always, and if you've got any further case suggestions, again, feel free to pop them down below, and I'll see you again soon for another video.